This is a short introduction for the page builder. I use the page builder to build a couple of pages just for this video. So this is the first page. And this is the second page, which is pretty much similar to the first page. Notice that the only elements that I'm using are shortcuts from the theme. The only exception being the heading shortcut, which is new. It's going to be available in the next version. So let's see the plugin in action from the backside. So either on top or at the bottom, well, we can create the rows. That's how the whole thing starts. You start creating rows. So let's say I want to add a row of 2 columns. Just click on it and you got your row with your 2 columns. You can do so at the bottom at the same thing. So if I want to create at the bottom a row with 3 columns, just click on once and those 3 columns are created for you. You can move them just like any page builder out there, and you can delete them. All right, so now we have the row setting, which basically has a label, and whatever you put here, it's going to be displayed. So you can see you can label those rows, so when you enclose them, have them closed, you can see have an idea what's inside the row. Then we have the layout, 1 column, and very easily you can change that to up to 4 columns. You can change the number of columns like that. You can choose the collapsed order. By default is left on top. And then you have the HTML ID for this row, which is going to be helpful if you're creating one-page websites. And then if you want to add an HTML class to the row and have some sort of a custom CSS to style the row, you can do so. And that's it. It doesn't have any settings for the row backgrounds that you can put maybe a background video or for the row, or a parallax image similar to what the more popular page builders do, like Site Origin, Visual Composer, WR, and so on and so forth. And this is it as far as the settings go. So each of the rows, you can have them closed or open, and the same goes with the elements of the columns. Now, unlike the rows, it doesn't have any settings. The elements don't have any settings. You can move them around, but you can't have a label similar to those. So if you have multiple elements, let's say in a row, and you have them closed, you're not going to have an idea what's inside, what's the actual content of that element, unless you open it. So the way I operate, usually it's have the rows closed, but have the columns open, so when you open it, you can see what's going on. Other than that, the only thing that I can say that as far as modules go, and let me create a new row with a column over here. When you click on the plus sign to add the element, the only thing that you get is this. It's basically the default WordPress editor, the TinyMC editor. So if I click on it again, I get the full-blown editor, and this is where you create the content. You can have simple text, or you can use the theme shortcodes. And this is where the theme shortcodes come handy, or any other shortcode plugin that you have installed. Just have in mind that some shortcodes don't work. If they have JavaScript, if they're JavaScript enabled, they won't work. And this is also true when it comes to site origin and WR page builder as well. So they need to be strictly HTML based shortcodes. This is the reason why many of the shortcodes that come with WP Canvas shortcodes don't work over here. I think the Google Map works, but as far as the tabs and the accordions and the majority of the others, you're going to be out of luck. You need to find another shortcode plugin to the job. But I'm trying to do my best to have as many useful shortcodes in our themes as possible, so we won't need a third-party shortcode plugin to do the job. And as far as the rows and the columns are concerned, this is pretty much all you need to know. Now, on top, on the right side, we have tools, and this is basically basic export-import functionality that the plugin has. Unlike more elaborate page builders like Divi or Visual Composer, you can import and export rows or even elements, columns, what have you. In this case, you can only export the entire page at a time. And when you import a page, it will delete whatever it's in that page. So it's going to delete the content and then import whatever you're trying to import. So if I click on the generate export code, and then if I copy it, if I'm creating a new page, even on an existing page, if I go to tools and say import, and I can paste the code here. And when I say import the page builder data, it's going to delete whatever it was here and then import whatever you're importing. All right, so and the last thing that we have is a CSS box where you can put your CSS code, any custom CSS code that you have that's going to be working only for this particular page, which I don't recommend doing so here, for the only reason that is that the theme already has that. So if in the future, if I decide that this page builder is not good enough for me, but I've created some content, if I deactivate the plugin and use Site Origin or Visual Composer, I won't use the CSS at the very least. All right, so what happens if I disable the plugin? Well, because all the content is basically HTML and all the shortcodes that are built into the theme, as far as the content is concerned, nothing is going to happen. I'm not going to lose any content. But what I'm going to lose is the layout. I'm going to lose the rows and the columns. So when the rows and the columns go away, all those elements, everything is going to be in one column. So if I go to and deactivate the Qt Builder, I lose all the columns and all the rows. And if I go to the backside, all this information, everything else is gone to our traditional visual editor. So if I activate it again, everything is going to go back to normal. Okay. And here's the backside. All right, the last thing that I'm going to talk about is like, um, because it's very simple, because it doesn't have any um, background settings for the rows. One would think that you're pretty much limited. You can't do, for example, two columns with um, a parallax image as set as a background, which I already have. You saw it. And there are two ways of doing it: the right way and the wrong way. And then I'm gonna talk about that for a couple of minutes. Um, and once you realize why certain things happen and how to fix them, this page builder it's very quick and it's good enough for my use, anyways. Um, so I'm gonna go to the front. This is very easy. It's our section, full width section shortcode, and I put the spacer um, shortcode in there just to create 500 pixel space, so I don't have to put any. I just wanted to show the image and not content inside. So that's how I managed to put the full width section in here with that much space in between, and I'll show it to you in a second. Oh, and then I moved it up to all the way to the header. So I'm using our the theme's margin shortcode to accomplish that. The one that I'm talking about is over here. So if you don't have any row settings, uh, how am I going to put, how did I manage to put a background image for it? Okay. Um, and clearly I have two rows. Sorry, clearly I have two columns inside this row here. So this is what I did actually. So once I put the content inside the two columns, I saw which one um, is taller, which is the left one. The left one is basically an alert box, um, and um, uh, the type of the alert box is section, so it's 70% of the div section column. So that's why it's semi-transparent. And inside this column, I use the full section shortcode. So what's happening is basically the full section is going to the left of it and to the right of it until the edges of the screen. It's going to display whatever image or color you want to do, whatever you want to have. This works fine on big monitors, but the problem is very visible once you go into the responsive mode. And the two columns um, become one. So the way I have it, um, the the columns are going to break at 900 pixels. So let me show you really quickly. Let me go to that page. So we're okay here. We're gonna be okay here as well because the columns are not breaking yet. But once we go into the responsive mode, the call to action is not going to be inside here anymore. The image is not covering it. And if you didn't understand what I was talking about, let me show you why that's happening. So if I go to the row that contains all that, here are the two columns. So in the left column, which had the taller content, I basically put the full width section. And then we have the alert box inside of it. So as long as the two columns are next to each other, everything looks fine. But as soon as you go into the responsive mode and they break, and this goes under it, the full section shortcode will apply only to the first column, and that's a problem. So I was able to fix it actually fairly easily, and I'll show you how it's done. So I've got the second page, which is pretty much the same as the first page. And so as usual, we're okay with big monitors. And as long as once we break to the responsive mode, now the call to action is inside the image, inside the background, the parallax image, which that's the way it should be. So how did I manage to do that? Actually, the answer was quite simple. So basically, you have to set that the full section shortcode or the image, you have to set it on the row and not the column. So how do you set up on a row where it's not possible from the settings? So the answer to it, it's inside the row. So this time, instead of having two columns, I've created a row with one column, and inside I use the themes columns. So I created the two columns from here, and you can see the dotted lines that represent each column. So this is the first column, and that is the alert, and this is the second one, which is the call to action, and I put some space to push it down to make it even. And I use the opacity 0.8 and the background being white. I changed that from image that you can have to white, and I made it 0.8, so it's going to be sort of transparent, so you can still see the image in the background. And now I wrapped the columns, the two columns, with our section shortcode, which starts from there and it ends after the columns. Oh, there you go, right there. And that's how I managed to solve the problem. So even when the screen gets smaller than 900 pixels and the columns break, when the second column breaks and instead of being next to each other is under each other, the section shortcode wraps both of them and keeps both columns inside the image. So this is the biggest adjustment that I had to make to operate successfully the page builder. But once you start using it, you're gonna see that it's pretty cool. And that's pretty much everything you need to know about the page builder.